Misconceptions can get people into a lot of trouble when it comes to repetitive strain injury. Here are 12 of the most common myths.
RSI is all in your head.
While symptoms of RSI can certainly be triggered by stress, repetitive strain injury is not all in your head. A good clinician can diagnose it, and there are many tests that will diagnose repetitive strain injury. If it were just all in your head, the symptoms would go away once you had worked through those emotional stumbling blocks with a good therapist. If your doctor suggests that the symptoms that you're having are psychosomatic, get a second opinion. However, once you've seen a doctor who can diagnose and treat you and you're in a good physical therapy program and getting treatment, then it's really not a bad idea at all to see a psychologist. The psychologist can help you deal with sometimes really frightening anxieties, job-related stressors, such as not being able to keep up with your fellows. How do you talk to your boss about this? There are many financial problems. You may be losing your job because of repetitive strain injury. So it's really helpful to have someone to talk to. And sometimes other people don't understand what you're going through, but your psychologist will.
Hi Deborah, I get a touch of carpal tunnel syndrome now and again. But aren't RSI and carpal tunnel syndrome basically the same thing?
Actually, Paul, carpal tunnel syndrome and repetitive strain injury are not the same thing. Thank you very much for asking. It's important that people understand this because their injury may be somewhere else. It might be in their neck. It might be in their shoulder. It might be in their forearm. Repetitive strain injury is an umbrella term that includes many different injuries to the upper extremity. It could include de Quervain's disease, epicondylitis, otherwise known as tennis or golfers or bowler's elbow, cubital tunnel syndrome, thoracic outlet syndrome, and carpal tunnel syndrome. And those are just a few. But if someone doesn't have symptoms of carpal tunnel syndrome, such as waking up with wrist pain at 4 o'clock in the morning, they may not understand that their symptoms are really important and should be getting them to see an expert doctor right away so that they can take care of this. Maybe their forearms feel like they're on fire, or they're having such bad neck pain that they can't turn their head easily. They should be getting treatment for all of those things immediately. And remember, repetitive strain injury covers everything from the upper extremity, from the fingertip, the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, the upper arm, the shoulder, and the neck. So all of those things are included.
But I don't type much, so I won't get injured.
Typing is only one risk factor for repetitive strain injury. And actually, people use their mice 3 times as much as they use their keyboard. So think about that. You're putting all the work on one digit, one hand, and that can get injured from the fingertip to the wrist, to the elbow, to the shoulder, and even the neck. Other risk factors include having your equipment where it puts you in an awkward position, lack of physical conditioning, sedentary behavior. Just sitting all day can be a risk factor for repetitive strain injury. Poorly fitting workstations, poorly designed input devices, and that could include your phone. And finally, poor posture.
All my injuries will just go away when I stop using the computer.
If you receive proper treatment and not just rest, repetitive strain injury can go away if you catch it really early. And if you catch it earlier, your chances of getting more functional use of your hands back is much better. But many people ignore early warning signs such as weakness or dropping things, or their hands just feel weird, or it feels like they're wearing gloves when they're not, or they're having problems putting on jewelry, or they just feel really fatigued. It's really an effort to hold their hands to the keyboard. So you might feel better when you're not using a computer, and that's great. It's a sign that something about using computers is giving you this pain. So not using the computer is helpful. If you wait until you experience severe incessant pain before you seek treatment, a lot of damage can be done and you can develop a chronic injury. And at this stage, it may take many months of arduous physical therapy and rehabilitation to get you to a relatively pain-free state. So go in early.
If I start having problems using a computer, I'll just stop so I can save my hands for playing guitar.
Repetitive strain injury can impact so many things that people love to do. Playing the guitar, playing the drums, playing the piano or other musical instruments, crocheting, knitting, gardening. And when RSI impacts those things, it's typically too late to turn it around by just stopping using the computer so much. And anyway, most people have to use it for their work. And it's not only the things you love to do, like playing the guitar. You could have trouble reaching for things or getting dressed or cooking or driving or pressing elevator buttons or opening doors or twisting the caps off a jar. There are many ways where RSI can manifest in a way that it's going to impact your daily life. So protect your hands now before they get injured, because you can't use your other pair of hands to do the things you love to do. You need to take care of them in every single thing that you do during the day.
Why should I see a doctor? This goes away by itself.
It's true that in the early stages of repetitive strain injury, your symptoms can come and go. Maybe you'll have a bout of something over a weekend and then it goes away. And maybe a couple of weeks later, something else happens, you feel symptoms, but it goes away. And then those clusters of time where it goes away get shorter and shorter and shorter until it really stops going away and you have symptoms all the time now. Chronic RSI does not get better on its own. In fact, it can get considerably worse if you don't treat it.
I'll just get some of those weird splints or magnets, maybe even a wrist rest, and hope for everything to go away by itself.
People do all kinds of things to self-treat RSI, such as taking vitamin supplements or getting massages or the things that you mentioned, magnets, wrist splints, wrist rests, where you rest your wrist while you're typing, which is something you should never do. The trouble with these things is it doesn't address the source of the injury, which is complicated. And RSI gets worse if it's not being properly treated when you could actually turn things around. Now, splinting, where you wear a splint to hold your wrists straight, and it can lead to all kinds of adverse effects, such as muscle atrophy, lack of fluid return, and other serious consequences. It should only be done under the most judicious circumstances by someone who really understands the ramifications of splinting. And you should never use a splint while you're typing or mousing. Furthermore, if you're in so much discomfort that you have to use a wrist rest, something to rest your wrist on while you're typing, that's a very bad sign. It probably means you shouldn't be working at the computer. You should take an active role in your healing, but do it under the guidance of a good doctor, a good physical therapist, a good occupational therapist.
I'll just take some time off. Things will go back to normal when I come back to work.
It would be wonderful if people could just take time off and be free of repetitive strain injury. I really wish this were so. But more often than not, what happens is people go back to work, and the minute they sit down, their pain is just back the same way it was when they left 3 weeks ago. Soft tissue is very, very slow to heal. It needs to get treatment in order to heal properly, and then you have to go back on a very, very careful, graded way, which means you can't do the amount of work or the pace of work that you did before you got injured. It doesn't work anymore. That's how you set up this cycle of injury, rehabilitation, re-injury. You need to do it under the guidance of someone who understands these injuries. And when you start feeling better, you're going to be tempted, this happens to everybody, you're going to be tempted to just gallop off into the things that you used to do, and then you find out the next day you did too much. So eventually, one way or another, you will learn how to pace yourself.
I'll just get an ergonomic keyboard. It's a big deal.
I'm sorry to say that ergonomic equipment will not make an injury better, and it won't even necessarily prevent an injury to begin with. Let me explain that. Ergonomic devices do not address all the risk factors of repetitive strain injury, such as speed, repetition, poor posture, awkward positioning, weak muscles, lack of conditioning, and sedentary behavior. And those are just a few of the risk factors. And the new tools can shift the injury from one body part to another. So initially, maybe that new keyboard or mouse felt great, but then you start noticing, oh my gosh, now I've got problems in my shoulder because instead of mousing the way I used to, now I'm using my shoulder, and now that's hurting me too. So you see how you have to sort of think in a bigger way. There are no substitutes for rest, regular, frequent breaks, pacing, physical conditioning, proper posture, proper biomechanics, and a reasonable workload. You also need to heed your body's warning signs that you've had enough for today. This is easier for people who are self-employed, and many people with repetitive strain injury do become self-employed just so that they can pace themselves. Athletes know this. They know that they need good technique. That's why they have coaches. They know that they can't just go and go and go. They need to take those rest breaks. They need to eat a good diet. They need to pay attention to all of these things so that they can keep their bodies in peak condition and not get an overuse injury. Computer users are also athletes, whether they realize it or not, and we need to take the same approach.
My fingers tingle, but my doctor and my physical therapist say the problem is in my neck. They must not know what they're doing.
Oh no, I think your doctor and physical therapist are really smart. The neck, and especially forward head posture, is the leading culprit when it comes to repetitive strain injury. People are coming forward like this to view their screen, and that can lead to a cascade of problems all the way down the line from the neck to the shoulder to the fingertips. There's an important branch of nerves in the cervical spine in your neck, and if they get compressed, they can lead to all kinds of trouble all the way down the line. So if your doctor or physical therapist is paying close attention to your neck, I am all for it. It's a good sign.
My coworker claims he's injured, but he and I do exactly the same job and have identical workstations, so he must be faking it.
So your coworker is a completely different person from you. They have completely different work habits, different biomechanics. They may be a different gender. They may be at a different fitness level than you are. There are many reasons why one person would be injured and another one wouldn't. But having said that, I would like to point out that repetitive strain injury is a cumulative trauma disorder. It doesn't happen overnight. So just because your coworker who's doing all the wrong things, has terrible habits, doesn't pay attention to technique or breaks or good posture or any of these other things, just because that person isn't injured doesn't mean they won't get injured down the line when their bad habits catch up with them. We hope that doesn't happen. And some people do seem to be bulletproof, but that doesn't mean that you should take chances with your hands.
People just don't want to work, so they claim to get injured so they can get the benefits, right? Easy money.
People really want to work, and they will go to great lengths to keep working, including worsening their injury by trying to keep up with their old pace or their coworkers or their current deadlines. And that can make things so bad that eventually they become so disabled they can't work anymore. So they have to have disability payments. The most common question I get from people is, what job can I do now that I can't use my hands anymore? People really want to work. And if you look at it, the salary they were making when they got injured could be 10 times what they would be getting on workers' compensation, which really doesn't cover much. So not to mention the hassle and the hoops that you have to go through to get it, and the fact that so many people are denied. So I do not believe that people are doing this in order to game the system. I really believe that most people really want to work. They have something to offer society, and they want to keep working. And it's very difficult to keep working when you have repetitive strain injury, but not impossible. If you want to learn more about what it's like to work with repetitive strain injury, watch the video that's coming up next.